Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Amazing Outdoors. This podcast is being presented by Upland Outfitters, home of the Relentless Pants, man. Those things are awesome. I had them out this week, and I pretty much, since I started the partnership with Jason, have been wearing those pants out anytime over the summer here where I had to do any work at the farm or dog training. I've even had them on the boat a little bit. They are tough as nails. I have yet to see a pull 'em thread. I've been in some nasty briars. They really held up a lot better than I thought. I can't recommend them enough. Hunting season is around the corner. Make sure you use discount code AMAZING, and I believe Jason is still offering 20% off on the Relentless Pants. So pick up a pair before hunting season is upon us, and you're out in the woods with a pair of ripped up pair of pants and sweating, unnecessarily, because Jason's pants and the Relentless Pants are top notch and breathable, light. So you're going to want them this early season. Make sure you get them now. I also have a quick announcement. We've got another kind of temporary partnership with Chippewa River Custom Rods. Tom is going to be offering 10% off with discount code AMAZING10. AMAZING10. And it's all caps. If you decide to call him for a custom rod, just make sure you tell him that you heard about custom rods on Amazing Outdoors podcast, and he will make sure that you get hooked up with a discount. All that information for both sponsors and partners are going to be in the show notes, so please support the podcast and these great companies. They are really good partners for the podcast, and I would like to see our listeners support them as well. So look them up, Upland Outfitters and Chippewa River Custom Rods. Enjoy today's show. I gotcha. You thought you were listening to some other random podcast. No, you've dialed into Amazing Outdoors. But while you're looking at your screen, like, share, comment, and make sure you're downloading for the next episodes, because we got some really cool stuff coming up. Well, we have reason to celebrate tonight. It is episode 20. 20 of these things. I can't believe it. We're off in a little over 90 days. We've had a lot of conversations, some great friends. I've got a couple plugs here, but enjoy the hook here in the intro. I actually got time for one. Jeff loves fishing YouTube. I know he's gonna love the intro music tonight. Today, we meet another fellow musky masochist. And I don't use that term lightly. Today we have Dan, the owner of Musky Fool out of Madison. Dive into the musky fly fishing craziness Enjoy today's podcast. I'm sorry, I can't. We gotta celebrate a little bit more. This song ain't done. Before we kind of go down a bunch of rabbit holes, Dan, you want to give the listeners a little rundown about who Musky Fool is and kind of how you got your start?
Absolutely. And just to kind of kick off, just return the kind words, man. Thanks for having us on. We're happy to be here. Well, I'm happy to be here. Jen is wishing she could have joined, but she was tied up today. But yeah, so a little bit about me and Musky Fool. I'll keep it quick. Musky fishing, conventional, probably picked up my first 10 weight about 10 years ago now. Started trying to figure that out right after college. Kind of got back into it and got back into it fly fishing. Over the course of, working and trying to get as much fishing in as possible, you never get enough. Kind of got to this point last summer where, it was a good time for me to move on from the company I was with and had a little bit of runway to do so. And, we were actually up in northern Wisconsin and, just kind of it hit us as it did many times before how underserved the muskie world was in fly fishing, especially being from Wisconsin, in Wisconsin. I mean, it's kind of ground zero. We have two cities that claim to be the muskie capital of the world, but regardless, the state, it's pretty much as far back as you can go. There's muskie lore and myth associated with Wisconsin, and to have that plus the groundswell of interest and anglers getting into muskie fly fishing, it just kind of made sense that there needed to be a fly shop that really was a muskie first fly shop. It wasn't about trout and what's going on out west. And yeah, we have some beautiful trout fisheries and steelhead rivers in Wisconsin, but we don't have a lot of muskie stuff. And even some of the awesome fly shops that we have, it's not their bread and butter. It's not what they like to focus on. So we set out to do that, to really bring together the crazy world that is muskie fly fishing and help people get set up. And I think there's a lot of underground nature to the muskie world, whether it's fly tires or bucktail or which rod people are using. So it's a way to kind of curate all of that, with the true north being a lot of what you alluded to on the front end. It's the state fish. It's the apex freshwater predator. It's kind of the indicator of how our freshwater ecosystems are doing. If they're healthy,
especially on the warm water front,
Yeah. I mean, if they're healthy watersheds, we're seeing healthy populations of muskie, whether that's, the stocked populations being able to survive, and even better, the naturally reproducing wild strains thriving.
So curious, yeah.
Go ahead.
Musky Fool, you guys started it last year.
in September. Yeah, we opened September 8th.
So
right
when
in
did
the
you walk
thick of
away
the
from your
pandemic.
when did you walk away from your previous role?
It was August 15th. So it was a quick turnaround. We had obviously been kind of in development since about July or June of that year. Right as I kind of knew that one chapter was ending, we started to look ahead a little bit. So that's when it came together, and our backgrounds lended our doing that and doing it well. We think, at least. I come from the tech startup world. My wife works at a major retailer in apparel. So it was just, we had the right stuff to be able to know what needed to come together. And then it was just about creating a good experience, creating a website. I think that's one element where we get a lot of heat kind of being online only right now, because the fly fishing world is very tied to the brick and mortar experience. But at the end of the day, that's how a lot of people are shopping, especially amidst the pandemic, where people were not going anywhere in person. So to be able to really build a great experience online, that's not just someone selling products, but also a brand, and you can feel, and also people can still talk to us and get that local fly shop experience. I'm here to talk on the phone, message on social media, whatever it is, to help people out. We're not trying to hide behind the computer at all. But that was really step one for us, was we wanted to execute what we thought was the most important species in the warm water upper Midwest scene, and also execute on the technology of building a good online experience. So that was kind of step one, if you will. And we have a couple, other steps in the process as we look to move beyond and offer stuff beyond just musky, and one day have a brick and mortar ourselves. So
very nice, man.
Kind of where that started.
Yeah. The reason I asked is I personally had kind of a similar experience last year. Myself, I stepped away in August as well.
Nice. Congrats for making the leap.
Yeah, it took me a little while to figure it out. It was August and fishing was flame on, and I was just getting ready for bird hunting season, and I had a couple guys coming up to bear hunt with me the end of September. And so I spent, a couple months doing some soul searching out in the woods and the rivers. But I came down with the podcast and wanted to, share some of my experience and knowledge base. And so I launched the guide business this year. Yeah, it's
awesome, dude. Love it. Congrats.
Yeah, I always enjoy conversations with people who have decided to bet on themselves.
Yeah, I think in this world too, you gotta, at least my perspective coming from startups, it's tough to make stuff work when it's a late night hobby. It's a bigger risk, but when you can put all your chips in the middle and kind of go all in, that's how you really know if there's something there. Because otherwise you'll kind of be left wondering, what if I could dedicate more time? What if I had, I could invest in my business more, and I don't like that what if. I'd rather fail because I went all in than fail because I wasn't sure if I went all in. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, man. I think you're probably pretty close to aging myself. I'm 37. How old are you?
I just turned 30, so I'm still a youngin' in some respects.
You can't say that when you hit 30. Between 30 and 50, you're a middle-aged guy now. So
good. That makes me feel better. Better.
Yeah, just with that, it was like I kind of hit 36 last year and then 37 this spring, and I came to the realization that that what if was really haunting me. And
yep.
My wife, she listens to this podcast, she's going to probably give me some shit later, but and in hindsight, I wouldn't have done anything different. Before I say this comment, I love the decisions and how the life's played out for me. But
got you to this point.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20, right? And had I pursued what I wanted to at 18, I would have packed my bag, moved to Alaska, and became a full-time hunting and fishing guide. So I always had that in me, and it takes a different kind of person to be able to want to find enjoyment out of hunting or fishing for somebody else.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
And I always kind of had that. I was like, every time I go somewhere, I'm hunting or fishing, it's like I'm always Rolodexing through my phone, who can I invite along to have fun today? And, and that's just me by nature. And I always like to share that experience. So yeah, when August hit last year and I kind of realized that the pandemic was here and at least, the business community was going to continue to do virtual whatever. I was in corporate sales. So my gig was out meeting people and conversating with them face to face. And I wasn't built to sit in front of a computer. I did that like maybe 60% of my time on a week that I didn't really have much going on. The rest of the time it was like 20%. And now I'm required to do 100% of my time and I have no getaway. I mean, I'm just like, because everybody's connected, because we're all at home, like I was just expected to always be there. And I just couldn't, I didn't want to live that way. Let's put it that way. And so it was just time. It was time to bet on myself. It was time to take a chance and kind of like you had alluded, the pathway was there and we had a little bit of financial security so that I could kind of get this thing going. And, yeah, man, I'm loving life. I work now way more than I ever did and I don't feel like I work at all.
That's the name of the game. Make it feel like play. And you make some good points. Like it's, I went through this process as a younger whippersnapper, when we were in college and business major and, wanted to start a business. And, back then it was create a new app. And looking back in hindsight, like it does, I do encourage people to go get some of that experience. It might not be the end dream, but it's what allowed me to cut my teeth and feel confident now. Can you start a business as an 18-year-old? Absolutely. But I think getting a little bit under your belt, whether it's in the business world or whether it's in the domain area where you're trying to establish some expertise, it's going to make it better. It's going to make it better long term. And
absolutely.
Again, I'm in the same boat. I wouldn't have changed anything, right? Those experiences are kind of what shaped me.
Yeah, if I went down the other path,
it's still funny though.
I'd still be a bum in Alaska,
Right,
with
right.
No kids.
And then you'd be right, and then you'd be wondering, well, what if I did? Yeah, exactly. So it's always, I kind of look at that regret minimalization framework when I'm old and crotchety. What am I going to have looked back and said? Yeah, I gave it a shot, and if I feel good about that, I'll feel probably, I won't have any regrets, I guess. So,
exactly.
But it's still funny because, as you mentioned, age and stuff. I guarantee there are probably some of my family members and friends who are whispering, like, I think Dan's going through a midlife crisis. He left his tech job for whatever this
My
this
old
thing
man
is.
for surely thinks that. He's all supportive on the phone, but then my wife comes by, later.
Okay? Is he okay?
He's like, he should really get a real job,
I hear it a lot still.
Talk to me in 2 years. Talk to me in 2 years.
Yep.
And then
usually coming from the people who hate their current job, so it's you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Well, he's retired and fishing full time now, and it's like and
good for him.
Yeah, and I get it. He wants the best for me, and I'm sure that's where it comes from. But at the same time, the best for me also includes happiness, and it's not all about money. And as long as the sustenance is there to be a good steward and not be a burden on society and give back, then really, I don't know. I think a lot of people in life they choose to work super, super, super hard so they can play on the weekends and then put off all of that play until they hit 65.
Yep.
And
live a life full of the Sunday scaries is kind of how I would refer to it. There's always every end of the weekend came with a little bit of that.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. The things that I love to do, man. I can tell you right now, the way I have been on my body, there's no effing way I'm going to be doing them at 65 in the capacity that I could do them today. So I'm fighting. We go through these personal infights and kind of our brain kind of sacrificing the things that we want to do so we can do them later. We have money to do them. And, you have to do that to a certain degree in life. And I think that's where if you buckle down and do it really smart at the front end of your life and learn, like you had mentioned earlier, so gain some of this experience, that it allows guys like us who maybe are a little bit more risk takers to step out and start chasing dreams.
Yep. You got to put yourself in the position to be successful. And it's a balance, because you also can't wait to win the lottery to then set out on your dreams. But you gotta optimize for the upside and be aware of the downside, for sure. And I think that's a good way to approach any venture, whatever it may be, the next Amazon, or a musky fly shop, or a guide business, right? Like, you gotta kind of set yourself up for success, and also know that it's not a waiting game. At the end of the day, you got to make shit happen. So
at some point, you just have to shift the car and put it in gear and press the gas.
Yep, no doubt.
So, leading us to kind of how you put it, I really had to chuckle when I got your email back. A fellow musky masochist.
Yep.
The people who enjoy beating themselves up for the reward. Musky fly fishing. It is kind of the dirty word in the musky industry, maybe.
Yeah, and even the fly fishing industry, perhaps. But yeah,
yeah, there's some guys doing some non-conventional fly fishing for these things too, I would say.
Yeah, well, it still is kind of a fringe. We got this starting up, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when it's like a musky fly shop. Well, that's not real fly fishing, and that's I love to hear it, because
especially down in Madison, man. I mean, you're being so close to the driftless there, where everybody runs around with 3, 4, 5 weights. Yeah,
and that's what ultimately we're headed is. Musky is first because of what it conjures in people, right? Especially in the upper Midwest. Like, whether or not you fish, you've probably heard a story, or an uncle or a cousin who, caught a big one, or you saw a big one. And it's just, trout don't do that to anybody, so it was a very obvious, because of our passions and because of what the fish does to people, where to start. At the same time, I think the beauty of Wisconsin that sometimes gets missed is it's not any one thing. It's the whole beautiful landscape of, and to include hunting, since your audience is for sure that, just let's go through the year. You have, tail end of deer season, leads into trout opener, leads into turkey, leads into some of the best hatches in the country, leads into musky opener, leads into smallie, then we're back on the deer hunting.
Don't forget about grouse, man.
Yeah, then you got grouse and woodcock and pheasant in the fall, and then you got muskie. So it's just, we don't have enough months, and we're world class in all of those things.
It's funny you mentioned that, man, because when I met my wife, like, I don't know, it's probably about 15 years ago when we first started dating, I literally ran through the calendar like that. This is what I do. If you think you're going to change me, this isn't going to work.
The only thing that's going to change me is if they change the seasons around.
Yeah, exactly. Man.
Yeah. I love it.
Well,
but that's
and being the pinnacle.
On the fishing side. Yeah, I'm just on the fishing side, like that. I think is what we want to try and tap into a little bit. Is it's we're not musky purists. I will 9 times out of 10 musky fish over everything else because I'm a crazy person. But there's so much other great stuff out there, whether it's, a heck patch, which is kind of popping off right now in northern Wisconsin, or, the steelhead runs. Like, it's amazing. And I think, how do we celebrate that out and also balance that with not becoming the next, Jackson, Wyoming, where it's overwhelming, or Denver, Colorado, where people are leaving those areas because they can't elk hunt anymore. And, we have a little bit to learn on that respect. And not just about making it big. It's about making it known for the right reasons, getting people involved for the right reasons. So it's a tightrope act. It's a tightrope act for sure.
With muskie, you mentioned the elk hunting thing out in Colorado. Yeah, I put in for points this year, and I'm not giving them my money. I've hunted
Yep.
now too many seasons and saw way too many hunters.
Yep.
Until they change something, they're going to get my money for points, and maybe I'll go shoot a bird out in eastern Kansas, and that's about it, or eastern Colorado.
Right.
Well, I'm out in Kansas,
Right.
so that's about it. But with muskie fishing, you know, the old guard of you know, the Louis, what the hell is his name? The world record.
Louis Spray.
Louis Spray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending who you ask, right? Depending Cal Johnson or Louis Spray.
yeah. There's definitely a whole controversy around that. But
just for a moment, let me
go ahead, man.
That's why another reason, like the literal freshwater fishing and saltwater fishing world record organizations were split in two, not because of trout, not because of tarpon, because of fucking muskie. Excuse me, you might have to edit that out.
Hey,
but,
as long as we don't make it full of those, you know, I don't think anybody's going to give a shit. Oop.
Yeah, I'll keep it. But it was muskie. Like it was literally, they were stuffing muskies. And that type of lore. Again, I don't see a lot of other places, a lot of other fisheries, at least. So I just had to interject on that because I love it. I love it so much.
And you kind of add a little bit to this, and I'm going to throw a little icing on the cake. With you throw in fly fishing, and I said this on another podcast, and it kind of came to me a little bit over the last year. I've spent more weekdays than I've ever been able to out in the water or in the woods. And you know, I do a lot of reflection when I'm out, especially by myself. And, you know, I kept thinking, well, what was it that brought me to fly fishing? Why was fly fishing something that just, to me, I had to do? And you hear about Ted Nugent and the way he describes, you know, Fred Bear and the mystical flight of the arrow.
Yep.
The mystical flight of the fly line, with the icing on the cake of all the lore and all the backstory that northern Wisconsin it has with these muskies. And then the really, like the old guard who used to take these big fish and they used to mount them on and pull them out of the water. Now
shoot them.
Yeah, shoot them. How many of us are putting those fish back? And
yeah,
the sustainability around that, I think we've got the foundation to really do what you're kind of describing and not become the
passion's
Jackson.
There.
The passion's there, the fishery's there, the understanding of conservation in the muskie world is there. So we've got the right recipe to really kind of blow this thing up, and we do need to be mindful. But I think the foundation at its core is really going to allow for that to happen, and we can develop them. We were talking earlier too, to even add a little bit more lore to this. The rivers I think in lakes to a certain degree, but moreover the rivers in the upper Midwest here. You know, I still go out on the river and I still find areas where I feel like I'm one of very few people who have put a fly in this water.
Right.
You know, conventional tackle, not so much, but the exploration of warm water rivers in Wisconsin, and specifically in search of muskie and large smallmouth, is still something that I don't think has been nearly exploited to the certain degree that muskie fishing on the lake has.
Yeah, and I think I do include both. I mean, the lakes are probably more popular, right? They have a better boat launch for the $50,000 Lunds, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, exactly. And I don't want to sound
lakes too.
As a purist or anything,
too,
but the lore that brought me in was that exploration aspect of the rivers. And we've got just a world-class lake fisheries. I mean, you got the Bay of Green Bay, and again, back to kind of that diversity discussion. You can go from fishing in the middle of the city for hybrid muskies out to the Bay of Green Bay and up to, you know, northern Wisconsin and fish in the rivers. And in all three of those fish, when you get a picture of them, are going to look different because they're all different kind of strains of muskies. So
absolutely. And another couple points on that, like, you know, love a big brown trout, right? They're awesome to catch. They're fun to chase, but like, those aren't native. that we got a couple fish here that are very unique to our area, and whether or not, yeah, sure, some muskies have been stocked, but this is their native range. Same with smallmouth bass. So let's protect that before we start getting crazy stocking brown trout and worrying about other things that are not native. We've seen that go wrong. I mean, there's brown trout throughout the entire country now.
Yep.
It's probably for the better ultimately, right? They brought more money to the conservation, but at the end of the day, humans messing around with the planet, and we can do that in the right way with muskies, because of its native range. So I think that's important as well.
You've kind of hit the nail on the head with, I think, really one of the problem dynamics with bird hunting, upland bird hunting in North America, is, we put so much focus on this non-native bird, the pheasant, that all of the rest of our native bird species, bobwhite quails, sharptails, prairie chickens, sage grouse, they've gone on the wayside. And now you've got competition, and a lot of the money goes directly into kind of put and take pheasant release kind of situations here. At least I know for sure in Wisconsin. So, the parallels are there.
Calculus.
The parallels are there, though. I mean, and that's where I'm kind of trying to go with this, is that if we don't look at those things that have happened in other, because you can go to waterfowl and holy cow, they've had success stories. So, we have the foundations with the river and the fisheries here in the upper Midwest, in the lakes, to really exploit it, but it's got to be done in a conservation aspect. And we have to, the brown trout, last podcast I had my local fisheries biologist on, and she was telling me that in one of, I don't care, it's well known, it was on the other podcast, but like Katy Creek up here, is a brook trout native, and it's slotted for, I forget how she used the term, but it's a brook trout water because of the spring fed that will be able to sustain brook trout even with a warming climate, because of the spring water. Well, that is the headwater creek for a much larger river that has had native brown trout stocked in it for many, many years. Well, like in 2005, they took the DNR in Wisconsin actually started not stocking native brown trout, but they took a strain from Timber Coulee down by La Crosse and started replicating that strain and stocking it into these streams in Wisconsin. And they have now seen a ton of brown trout come up in Katy Creek, and it's become a problem that they're actually encouraging anglers to harvest brown trout out of Katy Creek. So, those things, it's complex calculus. Like, it's probably the best way that I've heard it put. And it's managing habitat, it's managing growth, all of these things that, if we're not at least thinking about them in the forefront and planning and looking at what can happen in the future, we're just going to get there, and all of a sudden we're going to have more problems to deal with. So,
we're just messing around with the buttons and not knowing which one does what. And it's tough because I don't like to come off. I'm intentional to not. It's easy to look backwards and say we should have done something different, and we can't do that. Like, all the brown trout stocking led to more people fishing waters, led to more conservation easements, led to more investment in the watersheds. But when we look forward, can we at least admit brown trout are not native, no matter what type of strain, to North America? We brought them over a long time ago. And then compare that to, I think there's some really cool stuff going out on the Pacific Northwest with the Wild Native Fish Society about, they've already, I would say they're probably 5 to 10, even more years ahead what we are doing here in the Midwest in terms of like, hold on, stocking doesn't work. It's too expensive. How can we manage wild and native fish and try and bring them back? And obviously at some point you're going to have to stock a little bit to start the process. But there's interesting things there and interesting parallels that I think we can learn from. Because we spend a lot of money in just in Wisconsin and other states to stock trout and muskie. And sure, there's benefits, right? I'm sitting in an area that wouldn't have muskie in the Madison chain, and we have a possible, very large specimens now swimming around all of those lakes. So it's all because of stocking. But let's look forward. What can we do in the future to not just rely on it? Because I think stocking has allowed us to pretend that we can have our cake and eat it too. We can not care about the water quality. We can develop every shoreline. We can not manage, for that, and we can stock. And look, there's fish there, and people get their house on the shore. And it's like, oh, we won. And it's like, can we look forward and maybe have a different perspective? Is all I try to push for.
Yeah, and I'm sure I've lost a few listeners on the podcast because I haven't necessarily been able to come off. I'm rough around the edges, man. I really sometimes don't give a rat's ass what comes out of my mouth. And that has been a detriment to me to some degree. However, I think so you got to have a set of balls to have these tough conversations, because they lead to tough questions. They lead to moments where you're not comfortable, because we all, that recollection of, okay, we've done these things, and then looking forward, that reflection process and trying to come up with a better path leads everybody to go, well, we may have done something wrong. And I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone. And when we have these conversations, and I think that's what you're trying to get across too, it's that let's just be honest about what we've experienced in the past, and let's try to learn from it. Yep. And let's not try to repeat the same process over and over just because it makes people feel good.
Right. And we have to be realists too. Like I'm no dummy. I know why there's money put into muskie stocking and why we want to stock Leech Lake strain in Wisconsin, right? Like, yeah, there's recreational dollars behind it, and that does usually come back to the fisheries, even if it is a sliver. So it's like I get why we've done that, and I'm not saying ignore that and just be a complete idealist, but we can at least factor that stuff in and at least think about it and talk about it and maybe perhaps act on it. Well, and I think save money. That's like back to the Wild Native Fish Society. Like, yeah, there was this purist idealist. What if it was native wild fish? But it was actually pushed forward because of the financial implications of how much it costs to stock, how many of those stock fish never make it, and what if we took the same amount of money and invested it a different way? And so it came down to like financial incentives. That's what makes the world go round. So we have to paint that picture too. And I think it's on the hunters and anglers to do that. It's not just going to happen. It's not just going to happen overnight because a bunch of people are complaining about it.
I completely agree. You and I are on the same page, man. We got to get in a boat sometime.
Yeah, we should. We should, dude. Absolutely. We'll make it happen. I don't know when this is going to air, but I'm a little jonesing.
I can air it today if you want.
Oh, good. But we're about to head down to Missouri for a little family vacation, and
nice.
I'm leaving really good musky weather right now, which is always hard. I kind of have to pull myself. I might get to go fish for them down there because it's starting to cool off and rain, but I'm looking at the forecast up here and be like, what am I doing?
Hey, man, there's some great family float trips down in Missouri if you're going to take a boat or a raft.
We're taking the big lake boat. Big lake boat. I got an old 1993 Alumacraft, so I'll be taking that.
She catches fish.
She catches fish. She's got some good juju, but if we can get into some muskie, that'll be icing on the cake. So
right on. Yeah, what part of Missouri you headed to?
Table Rock Lake.
Okay.
So it's I'm no expert, but I believe it's actually at least part of or the headwater of the White River.
Okay.
So that's the famous trout stream that flows in Arkansas.
The Branson area, right?
Yep, Branson's just on the outer edge of it. So it's one of those big, Ozark style lakes. Whenever I'm down there, I think of we almost dammed up the Kickapoo River a little bit ago. And it's like, that's what it would look like if we dammed up the Kickapoo River. And some people might think that's cool, right? There's casinos on the lake and there's businesses and lodges, but I always sit in the middle of that lake down in Table Rock and wonder, what would this have looked like with that natural river flowing through it and those 200-foot bluffs? Like, they're very similar geographically in terms of the rock and the steep slopes and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I'm glad we didn't dam the Kickapoo up.
I've always noticed the parallels when I'm down in Missouri to the Driftless area.
Yep.
It's just gorgeous kind of country. And I've always been down there for work.
Sure.
and never took the time to fish. I've got some acquaintances I know down there, and they've got areas where they'll float and they'll catch rainbows and smallmouth together. And I'm going, I got to do that just sometime over the summer. Like, just go down to Missouri and kick around for a week.
Yep, no doubt. No, it's fun. We enjoy it. We catch a year's worth of bass, and then we come up reinvigorated to go muskie hunt. So it's I always looking at it through the lens of muskie, no matter what. Again.
So let's dive into muskie.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've spent enough time beating the conservation horse. You and I are on the same page, man. We definitely need to. I would like to talk to you off air, and I've been sticking a lot of dollars in the bird hunting realm and a little bit in the fishing realm. So I'd like to ask you who's kind of doing the right thing in the industry currently. But we can save that conversation for another time, or maybe even another podcast. But
I would just, if you don't mind, I would
go
just
for
make
it, man. Absolutely.
One last plug on that. And we talked about we have an amazing muskie fishery here throughout the country, not just Wisconsin and Minnesota. And we have every angler is catch and release fishing for these fish. And we have to at least, clap our hands to the people that made that possible. And that's Muskies Inc. for the most part. And I would encourage folks, their local chapters like Trout Unlimited,
they work
they're
the
all
same kind of
different.
way.
Yeah, and everyone might have a certain taste in their mouth about a good chapter, a bad chapter, but at the end of the day, you got to get involved with it. If you don't like the way it's going, get involved, show up to the meetings. They're trying to do good stuff, and I think they want to hear from more people, and they want more perspective. And that's the only way I know how. I can sit on my couch and bitch and moan, but at the end of the day, nothing's going to move like that. So join your Muskies Inc. chapter. Yeah, that's my plug.
I literally say at at the end of every podcast, if you're going to go out and take something from the land, be willing to put that back. And a lot of times that's either getting out there and getting something dirt underneath your nails or opening up your wallet.
Yep, exactly. The least we can do. So that was my Muskies Inc. plug, because we got to recognize why we have some of the fisheries we have, and who's going to help us push this forward. But anyway, let's get into the good stuff.
Well, and one more little comment on that.
Yeah.
If the funding works like I think it does with Trouts Unlimited and a lot of these other national kind of conservation groups, if you fish in a particular area, like maybe you're from Chicago and you come up to northern Wisconsin and that's where you muskie fish, join that chapter.
Yeah.
Join that chapter, because that money stays in that water in a much higher percentage than if you just go on the computer and put your money in at the national level.
Yep. Exactly. I'm living in a muskie spot, so like we caught a few muskies the other day on the lake. Those muskies were undoubtedly stocked because of Muskies Inc. 15, 20 years ago. So someone 20 years ago that, was thinking ahead, and they're still doing it. Money.
Went out there and worked with the DNR to get the program going.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So a lot of different entities with that, and it's our dollars that really make that happen. And then, our license purchases and everything else. So, hands up there, I gotta give a shout out to the Wisconsin DNR, at least for the fisheries and
absolutely
everything else. They've done a fantastic job to honestly set Wisconsin up to be a destination in just about almost every category.
Yep.
And it's quickly rising.
They've shown leadership to the rest of the country too. I don't put them ahead of anyone on a pedestal, but they, I think we've done a good job, and we continue to try and do a good job, which is really all you can ask for. Exactly.
I see it up and up and up for the most part in most things that I enjoy in Wisconsin, and that's why I decided to put my financial roots back into Wisconsin and get them out of Minnesota. So I couldn't handle the deer hunting season either, man.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, the first weekend in November. It's just sacrilegious.
You mean the bucktail harvest season? That's how I refer to it as. Again, through the lens of muskie, baby.
I totally get it. I shot. I was pretty trigger happy after a really crappy elk season 2 years ago, and I ended up filling all my rifle tags and I still tying a little bit of musky flies with that bucktail.
There you go. Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
They're almost gone though, man. So I'm gonna have to buy some stuff from your shop.
There you go. We got the good stuff. Mainly Wisconsin tails.
Is it really? Okay. Right on.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, most of them come from the upper Midwest, and they all kind of go through Wisconsin. There's some folks out in PA, New York, but we harvest a lot of deer here. So
yes, we do, in the hundreds of thousands.
Yep.
So you're going to Missouri, and then you're coming back to musky fish. I'm not a huge hot spotter, but I mean, we can talk generally about particular watersheds or bodies of water if you want, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I can navigate it if I, I'm not gonna tell anyone any secrets.
I'm going to ask you kind of a personal question, so you answer it how you want to. But,
sure. Open book.
You doing any up north trips this year?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When do you start going up north?
I'm allowed to. So I am. Line is wet on the water at 5 a.m. of opening day every season. Usually not the best fishing, but you're out there just because you've been waiting since December. So we tend to do. We have basically the month of May down here in the southern zone, pound that pretty hard. And then as soon as the opening bell for northern zone gets going, we'll get up there for Memorial Day. I'm getting up there more than I used to, which is awesome. So we'll do a July trip. We'll get up there again in August, and then September, October. I'm probably up there more than I'm down here. So I like to spread it around. I mentioned it earlier. You got kind of Boulder Junction and Hayward is the musky capitals of the world, and there's reason for that. Yeah. There's reason for that. They're both surrounded by amazing musky water, so you can't go wrong pointing your car that direction.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I'm in the Twin Cities, and I will tell you right now that I can drive clear straight east, and all the way to Lake Michigan, and it's musky water.
Yep.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
absolutely.
It's pretty special. And even again here, like I definitely try and put in a lot of time on the Madison chain because it's so close, and it's also got so many big fish. So it's like we like to celebrate that, but there's something special about being up in the Northwoods. There's
some big fish in that metro. I will be terribly honest. I've seen a lot of big pitchers come out of those lakes.
Oh yeah. And it's a success of Muskies Inc. and the DNR, but at the same time, there's some. I don't necessarily know if I can honestly tell you the fishing's better up north. I think we want to believe that. I'm admitting that it's purely nostalgia. I just love being up there. Love being up there, with the musky bars and the musky roads and I think you see a lot more of the. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's not loaded with power boats. And again, do your own thing. Everybody's free to do what they want, but it's nice to be up there and kind of have it to yourself for a day at least, which you don't necessarily get down in the southern zone.
Yeah, I can't agree more.
Back to your question.
I tend to think too, and you're being a little close to Chicago. You probably have to bite your tongue a little bit on this, but as the further south you go, the more Illinois plates you see.
By sheer probability, I will not.
Nothing
judge you
against
off your
them.
license.
I've got family.
I will
in
not.
Illinois.
I will not judge you off your license plate, but I will judge you on your characteristics as a human being.
Exactly.
So just yeah. I know some great people down there, and some great. We have some, one of the better musky fly guides and better musky guides in the country is now a Wisconsin resident. Came from bear country, so I don't judge, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, the reason I go there, it's purely joking, and I'm not the type of person that is gonna pass judgment on the license plate. But as I'm driving down the highway and I'm stuck in a traffic jam, and I'm back in the day when I grew up in Wisconsin, headed up to Door County, we're like 10% of the population in the highway that's got a Wisconsin plate on a car.
Yeah.
You know, the stereotype is there, and yeah, that's kind of, it's just,
yep.
It's always been a joke in our family. So
yeah, no, it definitely is, and I agree with you. The stereotype is there. We all heard stories, and those people are either paying property taxes up here, renting cabins up here. You know, the restaurants up in the northern Wisconsin are struggling. They can't find labor for a minute. They didn't have any business. So the money comes into Wisconsin.
exactly.
Wisconsin license sales. But, yeah, it's, you know, the same thing happens in Minnesota, right? I don't mean to call people out, but there are a lot of thriving businesses that they make their living going across the state lines to fish. So it's let's just call it out. We live in a great state. Let's keep it special. Let's make it special. I don't care what your license plate is, but
spend your money here and support our habitat projects.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll do the same when I'm out in Wyoming. I do the same, right? I want to support those fly shops and support those habitat projects. So
exactly.
That's how we make it all go round.
Exactly. Yeah. So speaking of Door County, you ever fly fished muskies up on the bay?
I have not, actually. I
never really heard of anybody doing it, and that's why you own a fly shop.
I know some guys that do, and you're going to see more and more all the time. And there's some actually, I've conventional fished up there.
Oh yeah,
just because I wasn't fly fishing at the time. You know, I kind of attribute it similar to Madison. Like, I don't go out on the Madison Lake to fish in peace and quiet. So you're not going to do that up there necessarily.
Oh, absolutely not.
You're going to have a chance at a fish of a lifetime. And it's different, right? I think what Musky offers is there is a little bit, if I could just call out another stereotype, right? It's the conventional guys fish the lake, fly fishermen, fly anglers, fishermen and women fish the rivers. And I grew up on the lakes. I love rivers. I'd probably pick a river over a lake, but you learn so much. Lakes are way harder. They test me as an angler. They make me figure out stuff more. Like, I can float down a river and it's pretty obvious where the fish live, right? Whereas
I
on a
use
lake,
that analogy all the time, man.
Yeah.
I commend the guys that do, and then even more so with the guys that fly fish it on a lake. It's I can do it, you know, at conventional tackle, but it's not my favorite because I just know the rivers. I can read
mentally.
Them. I can read them.
Yep.
And I want to catch fish.
There's a mental challenge, right? I've all done it even on lakes that I know well, big lakes. You're out in the middle of the lake, casting to a submerged weed line, and like, dude, musky fishing's hard enough. Your brain starts to just play tricks on you. What am I doing? There's a river. It's like I hit the spot, I hit the down tree, I hit the eddy, and then on the lake, you're like, oh my god, are there any fish here? I'm just out in the middle, but at the end of the day, there's a successful angling opportunity out there, whether it's Madison chain or, you know, some of the big ponds up in northern Minnesota or Green Bay, you know. So I haven't done it. Back to your kind of original question, I do need to get out there. There are some awesome guides who are, I think, seeing a big uptick in the fly fishing clientele, because there are those types of fly anglers that I kind of recognize myself with. I didn't grow up with a 4-weight in my hand. I grew up with a bait caster and a St. Croix rod in my hand, and I came to fly fishing. And I want to catch fish. I want to catch fish. So if I can go do that out on, you know, Lake St. Clair, like some of the boys do over there, really good fishermen, or some serene river that doesn't ever see boats, like both are awesome. And we gotta think about both too when we manage the both, because we have an amazing resource. So yeah, go ahead. I need to get up there. Long story short of it. Sorry.
So I've got a couple. So you go up to you fish the Chippewa at all up north?
Yeah, a little bit for sure.
Okay.
For sure. I think that's kind of like and I'm okay talking about that one is because it's
well known.
I
just watched the YouTube video
or the Yellowstone. Yeah, right.
And I'm like, they're putting the drift boat in, and I'm like, oh, I put my boat in there about 30 times.
Yep. And I think that's good, right? To have those sections that we know are known, and those are usually the sections that are going to get the first investment of conservation dollars. So it's like, it might not be your top choice if you're planning a trip, because you might run into people, but there's fish there. There's beautiful rivers. And I think they provide a test bed for some of this, which to me is, if there's enough interest, is there enough investment? And that's where that's going to happen. It's not going to be on that secret, quiet river that no one wants to talk about, because no one wants to talk about it. It'll be on places like the Chippewa and the Flambeau.
Well, and there's another one of those pucker kind of topics that I think we, as hunters and fishermen, women, conservationists, have to know that if we want to conserve the things that we enjoy and preserve it for the future, that we are going to have to battle more people and other people using that resource.
No kidding. If people are don't know that there's great muskie and smallmouth habitat there, but they know that there's a chance to open a pebble mine there, guess what is going to get the favor? I mean, I have to call it out because I just applaud it so much. What the folks, Tim Landwehr up at Tightlines did with the Menominee. That was the secret river to them for so long. They make their living off of it. They got guides running it. And he had a tough decision to come out and name it and call it out to the public. And he only did that because the battle royale was on. And it was probably a tough call. But at the end of the day, now we have people that know about its world-class fishery, and they say they want, even if they're never been on it and they live in Washington State, they want to put, $10 in the kitty to go help them out. And that's what can happen. And yeah, of course, now we're going to probably see some more drift boats out on there, but would you rather have more drift boats or no smallmouth?
Well, you kind of have to, too, look back at maybe, I forget when the St. Croix, I think it was in the 60s, they signed the National Scenic Riverway Act.
Yep.
But, I mean, there's over, I want to say with some of the headwaters of the St. Croix and the Namakan, even past Hayward, I think it's over 200 miles of river.
Yep.
That are pristine, non-developed. What is there is deeded to the next generation, and then it goes to the feds. And, I'm a personal liberty right kind of guy and personal property rights kind of guy. But at the same time, there are certain strategic things that we need to conserve in this country for many, many different reasons beyond just fishing or hunting.
Yep.
And there's a legacy component to it. And what they did with that, you're seeing just the massive benefits of it. And there's all kinds of different people using that resource from a business perspective today. And myself being one of them who has a permit on the river to operate a drift boat. And it's because of the non-development that's there that resource is just absolutely pristine, unbelievable. Access is wonderful, and people enjoy the hell out of it. And it does nothing to the fishery.
Right.
It is one of the healthiest fisheries in the Midwest. And so it's being able to, share that experience with other people that I think builds that conservation level. And again, it's sharing it. You have to share it.
Yep.
If you want to see it conserved, you want to enjoy it for the future, you have to be willing to share it with other people.
Yep. And it then creates the opportunity to go put money into other watersheds, right? Like there's this comment of the more people that get into it, the fisheries can't take the pressure. And it's like, first of all, they could take it. I live in one of the probably most pressured musky watersheds in the country out my back door. Fish are still caught. Sure, it gets a little harder, but guess what? Fish are also stocked. We have signs at both signs talking about water temps. So there is benefits. Can we do more?
And the harder
always?
aspect for a lot of people is because they go out and they do the same thing.
Yep.
You can't go out and expect to fish or hunt pressured animals doing the same old tactics that your grandfather taught you to do and be out there slaying them like the young kid who's doing something goofy. You got to be willing to change as the times change with approach and aspects to it. on how you're going to achieve your quarry. So,
yep. Especially now too, because, and I'll say this, we have never in the history of fishing and hunting had the boom of participation that we have had in the last year and a half. And that was we've all felt it, right? There were more folks in the turkey woods for me in spring. There's more drift boats. There's more people fishing. Let's channel it. Let's keep them interested. Let's make sure they know why these things exist and why they can be better. And let's optimize for that true north. It's easy to get pessimistic about it, but
you got to come on my podcast more because you're selling the podcast, man.
That's the least I can do. You pay me well.
Well, we're. I think we need to kind of plan a get together here, and we'll have to maybe bust this thing out after fishing one day.
Absolutely. And I know I keep steering us back to conservation. It's not my intent. We can talk a little bit more fishing if you'd like.
Hey, no problem, man. This podcast and my listeners, they've heard me beat this dead horse many times, and it's really right and center at at the core of the podcast, because personally, I believe that there is a legacy component to all of this, and it starts with awareness and education and the ability to highlight certain areas so people can put some things together and go out and fish or go out and hunt.
Yep.
Or maybe they hunt and they've never gone out musky fishing, and now this podcast inspires them to do that. I mean, that's really my goal, but it comes from a conservation approach, because we have to have these places to send people to go out and have a good time. And I want to see the opportunities that I had as a boy growing up for the next generation, and then their kin and their kin's kin. And, you just can't, without highlighting it, without spotlighting it and telling people how to do it and then why to care about it, we're not going to have it. We might not even have it in our generation. So hell ain't going to be here for the next 100 years.
And what's cool
somebody
about what
100 years ago, man, thought about this stuff, and that's why we have it.
Yep.
They stopped market hunting. They stopped all this stuff. They stopped raping the rivers and the resources to go sell stuff down in the meat market. So we have to remember that, and that's why I'm not trying to really get back to fishing, but I do want to talk some fishing because we're hitting the hour mark, man, and I can go at this for a couple of hours. So
I got time. You might have to edit a lot, but I got time.
Right now, I'm not editing nothing. And honestly, man, these things turn out the best, I think, when it's just two buddies bullshitting, and that's definitely what today feels like. So,
love it.
But let's talk about this for a second, then, since you're here, we've got time. When are you coming up north next? I mean, seriously, I've got a starting guide business. I'm not booked all that often yet. So if you're looking to musky fish or fly fish for smallmouth or conventional tackle, I'm not a purist. Hit me up. But
I love it.
But regardless, let's get out. Like, let's plan a trip
here,
and let's. I'm okay with sharing some stuff. I'll do the sharing. You can decide to bite your tongue when you want to. But when are you coming up north next? I mean, I've got some time in August and late July.
Late July and August are on the calendar. So we should, once we get done with this, we'll look at calendars and get something going. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, but and what town you stay out of? What big city you usually stay out of?
Oh, let's see. I gotta look. Let's see. We'll be in Hayward area, July, and probably middle of July.
Okay, that's closest to me. And then do you go out? To the northeastern side of the state.
Spend a little bit of time. Yep, I usually spend earlier in the season up near Mercer and Boulder Junction, so I tend to move west as the season goes on. But in that neck of the woods, probably once before the season ends.
You ever fish the St. Croix?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Great river. Yep. Okay. Great river.
You want to hit it?
I do. Let's hit it, man. Let's hit it. It's in your back door. It's not far from where you're at.
Well, and it's so well known to people, and I don't know, maybe some other guides might be pissed, but I really don't give a crap about talking about specific places on the Croix. At least my favorite stretch. I still you could see another 50 boats out there. I just don't. There's so much area to hide. It's such a big river.
And we're talking about Musky too. Like I've just been in situations where we've had 5 boats going down the river, and the guy in the back of the 5th boat is the one that catches the fish. So, it's, they eat when they want.
They choose you.
Yeah, they choose you. Exactly, Musky destiny. No, we should absolutely do it. That'd be a hell of a lot of fun.
So have you fished the stretch between 70 and 77?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Right on. Good, it's running really good low water right now.
Everything is running low. It's bad.
Rain. I told people earlier this year, because I planted 500 and some trees up on my farm, that if you see me out off the county highway and I'm naked in the middle of the field, acting all goofy, I'm doing the rain dance.
Oh, good. At least somebody's putting in the time.
I feel like I need to be out doing it for the damn watersheds right now, but
I know. It's a good time, though. I tell people this: it's a good time to go explore. When it's low and clear, like go learn a new spot. You might not have great fishing success. Go learn where the holes are. Like go.
Oh,
that's
you can
the beauty
see everything.
Of it.
Yes,
there's going to be guys listening who are circling on their maps, St. Croix, and that's.
Go for it, man.
That ends. That's a short rodeo. Go find your own stuff, and that's part of why we do it, right? Like, yeah, it's fun to go, hit a spot that has big ones, but it also is fun to find your own little piece of freedom. So go explore. We have so much of it.
Yeah,
so much of it. It's all connected. It's all connected. So go out there.
It is. Have you ever you floated much from Hayward down? On the Namakagon?
Yep. Pretty popular stretch there. Good stuff. Good water.
It is. It's actually, I think, a little bit more popular than further down.
Yep. Just the vicinity to where the Hayward, no doubt.
Exactly, and it's well known for more tubing.
In some areas.
Yep, the tube hatch. I like that. I used to refer a lot to the when I fished the Kinney over here. The kayak hatch happened, and I know you can probably relate to that down in the south.
Yep. No, and again, I see that as like, you can look at that pessimistically, or you can look at that as an opportunity. There's people that are using the river that might not know why it's there, why there's access there, right? That access is probably paid for by fishermen and hunters, and let's just educate. And I guarantee you they'd want to spend some money to keep it the way it is. I think it's about educating them on why it is and where they can spend that money. So
yeah, I mean,
it's an opportunity.
Don't get me. You can't deny though, when you've been fishing all morning and you're in the middle of a great sulfur hatch, and all of a sudden you hear the giggles, and
right.
You got 5 tubes coming down, a whole family coming down, and they do. Absolutely, on a smaller river, the fishing's different after that. So, I mean, but we all do need to recognize, and I the first few times in life it kind of happened, I was very pessimistic about it. But I'll be honest, what it forced me to do was go find water that they weren't on. Right. And that's where I started to realize that, okay, hey, there's a time and a place to go fish those places. It's early in the morning, it's late at night, in comparison, and then if you want a privacy, go find it, because it's there.
Yep.
It's there.
Yep.
The adventure aspect of fly fishing, really, I think too, and fishing rivers is one of the reasons that I just constantly love to go back, is because, I can read it, but it's like driving down a road. There's a different mailbox there's a different story every mile you go. And I don't think that same kind of replication for fishing for me is created on the river or on the lake. And the river
Yep.
gives me a different adventure aspect to it that I just love. And that's why I've always came back to it. But when,
I don't pack my chainsaw when I go lake fishing. So
No.
it's usually a bit of a goat rodeo, and that's part of the fun.
So I was looking at, I think your Instagram page, and I think you run like a stealth craft.
Yeah, we got a boat obsession over here, and I say we just to placate some of the responsibility on myself. But
every time I use the word we, that's the same thing.
We got old 98 Clacker Craft. We got a brand new Hooligan, and then we got that old 93 Alumacraft. So kind of still missing a few pieces, if you're asking me, right, to the puzzle. There's a few tools that I don't have, but don't also have the space right now, so I need to make room. But they're all good boats. Love them. They afford me the opportunity to get all the spots I want to go.
Well, depending on how fishing goes when you come up, I've got a 1900 square foot building in northwest Wisconsin that could possibly have some open storage space for you. So just keep that in mind in the future.
I will. That will.
There might be a small fee for it, but we can work that out.
Fine. I'm sure Jen.
You're a fly shop owner, so
yeah, right. I can scratch your back. Yeah, Jen is probably not happy about it. People probably tell her that they have storage. She says, "Don't tell Darren. Don't tell Darren." So I love it.
I'm actually waiting on a second tool to come up. So that's where.
What'd you get?
I actually I'm working on. I can't really reveal it quite yet.
Okay, cool.
But as soon as it shows up, I'll definitely be able to. I can tell you offline, but they might be coming on board here at the podcast. We'll see if the guy's name's Brian as well. So we'll see if Brian.
Very cool. Shout
out to Brian. Brian Walker. We'll see if he can make it back here to the Midwest this.
Very sweet.
This peak smallmouth season.
Yep, we're hitting it. Because
his craft is going to help me get into some of this other water that I've got I think my drift boat's a little older than your 93 Lund, you said?
Clacker Craft, yep.
Or what was your Lund?
The Alumacraft is a 93.
How old was the Clacker Craft?
98.
98.
Yep.
Okay.
So they've got some river miles on them.
Well, I think I got you beat. All I know is that it's a Don Hall boat, wooden. That it was from the 80s, I want to say.
Yep.
And I got it from a kid that was out in Colorado with it and moved back here for a job, and he had it painted Viking purple.
Oh no!
I got to call Fraser out on it. It was that, and he wasn't a Vikings fan at all. It was just that was the color of a fly shop that he was out west.
Oh sure, okay. We'll give him. We won't give him a hard time then.
But
as long as there weren't any Vikings logos on it.
I can barely even stomach the sharing the picture of my brother with the first muskie from on the boat, but yeah, you got a nice 40 plus incher, about 42,
nice.
Out of the St. Croix, about I think it was 5 years ago, and then I finally had it. This thing's got to change, so I stripped it and painted it and reworked some of it, and I did such a good job, man. And that by the time I had refiberglassed the bottom, I sealed it up so bad that I had some dry rot in it this year.
Oh no!
2 weeks ago, I went to get it out, and I'm like, this thing ain't going on the water. So I've spent the last 2 weeks with West Systems epoxy and fiberglass refixing.
I had to do the same. We went the Wetlander route. We had to do some redoing of the chines and all that.
Oh yeah,
speed up. It was well loved. But I
got 80 hours now in this spring.
There you go.
I think I've over 200. I calculated the other day since I've owned this wooden boat. So it's mostly fiberglass now.
keeping it alive. That's all you can. That's all you can do.
I look at it this way. I told my wife, this is the last time I am working on this damn boat outside of painting it and a little bit of upkeep. I'm not. So I mean, I literally, everything that is going to hold water or come in contact with water has been stripped and redone and either filled with epoxy or and in fiberglass or was sanded enough. And I'm like making sure this epoxy is going to stick to everything. So
yep.
I'm just happy.
Labor of love.
I'm happy I'm putting it in the water this week. So,
there you go.
It should have been in the water 2 weeks ago. And so, but anyways, back to what, so I'm getting a raft. And it's a 12-foot raft by 58 inches. And it's not guys that spend a shit ton of money on Instagram advertising, but it's a competitor of theirs, a newer competitor. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because I've got, again, I'm not willing to, or don't have a problem hot spotting this, but I've got the Apple River in my backyard. And it just, my drift boat's not going in it. It will downstream, but even then it's tight in some spots. So I'm really looking forward to having a much smaller vessel that can haul 2 people. And hitting a lot of the smaller rivers. You know, again, St. Croix, I typically don't go there on the weekend. If somebody wants to go there on a weekend, I'll take you. But I have a lot of other places that I'd rather go on the weekend because there's just less people. And especially when I'm guiding, I just want to give my clients the best opportunity they can. And usually that involves just getting away from people. It's one of the reasons I got a drift boat in the first place.
Yep, exactly.
Because there's nobody on the river, you know.
I know.
Especially where you have to take a drift boat. It's just you don't compete with the motorboats as much. Although the jets are starting to show up on some places, but
yeah, they are. It's funny though; it all goes in ebbs and flows. I mean,
again, it forces me to go find other places.
Yeah, and like what's going to end up happening is everyone's going to probably want to get on the river, and then all the lakes are going to be empty. So you'll see me on the lake. You know, it'll go through these cycles, and that's what's been cool and popular. And you know, I think we're starting to see a lot of people want to get on the river, which is awesome because it's bringing attention to spots that didn't get attention, and in a good way, right? There's sure negatives, but generally speaking, you know, we see more and more drift boats and rafts in Wisconsin, and that's okay.
I'm okay with it. Absolutely.
Yeah, we can't stop it. You can't stop it because you're mad at it. So at least try and make lemonade out of it.
Well, I went from a 16-foot boat, and now I have an additional 12-foot boat. And again, whole purpose was that so I can go out and explore new water. Now, I'm not going to say that it all motivated me out of seeing too many people on the river. It's because I want the adventure. I want to go find places that, again, have been untouched for the most part from this style of fishing, or maybe not necessarily this style of fishing, but maybe this category of kind of fly fishing, you know.
Right.
Especially when you throw the lure of musky in, it just, I don't know. You already know going out that it's a freaking task. You're going to get beat up. So why not explore something? You never know what you're going to uncover. Yep. So
you're absolutely right.
That's
expectation setting in musky fishing is important, especially for a guide.
Oh yeah, you want to catch fish or not catch fish?
Yeah.
Because if you want to catch fish, let's go smallie fishing.
Right.
If you want to beat yourself up and get the chance at accomplishing a goal, then let's go musky fishing.
Yep.
That's it. It really is. And too personal. It just not even being a guide. Like, you know, we're talking about, you know, getting out and.
Yep. Smallmouth make me giggle. Musky make my knees shake. So it's just a different experience.
Yeah. It makes my arm sore.
Yeah. I'm currently nursing one of those, but that's part of it, right? You feel like you at least earned something out there.
So speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about setup.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of change in musky fly fishing, and I haven't really kept up with a lot of the rod and setup progression. I see guys starting to use these big spay rods. Me personally, I've got 10 weight. I have a 12 weight. I haven't taken it out in a couple of years. I've got a 10 weight and a 9 weight that I kind of use for musky, with the 9 kind of crossing over a little bit for smallmouth. And then I run an 8 weight rod that, again, can handle all of it. It's just kind of personal preference on smallmouth. Top water is kind of the 8 weight. 9 weight's kind of the top water musky. And then I'll run a sink tip on it if just top water's not running, and we'll run smaller flies on it, a 3 inch. And I got a whole nother thing I wanted to discuss with you about flies, but
let's do that next. We can hit gear and flies if you want.
Yeah, and then I typically run the 10 weight on a bigger. And when I say bigger, it's not these flipping T-bone flies, these 16-inch things that I see going on. Then that's the whole thing I want to talk about. But anyways, I'll run a traditional kind of bucktail musky fly on a sinking line, and I've actually little tip. I don't know. Maybe you might scold me on this, but I've run some utility to my rods too, because I do go south. So my 10 weight kind of crosses into the tarpon realm and big snook realm for me. And I threw on some.
What are you throwing? What do you got?
To be honest with you, I've got a TFO lefty crate rod. I just call it the frickin' the telephone pole. Like it's not fun to handle. But I don't know. I already know it's not going to be fun. And I can throw it. It's a rod that I've had a couple of now. I'm looking at a new setup. My buddy just bought, I think, the St. Croix 12 weight. The musky rod. So he's going to come fishing with me this week, I think, and I'm going to give it a test run. I need another. I can't have just one 10 weight when you're a guide.
Oh no, especially and I think there's obviously the like we like our gear, and then there's practical reasons where you can have a different line spooled up for different situations and different flies. Like I think we're seeing
kind of why I run the 3 rod spread.
Yep, and we're seeing more of that as people. What started out was just the basic musky fly, the deceivers, the Bufords, and like that to me, when you compare it to lures, is a type of lure, right? It has a certain action. So then if I want to, do a jig style fly or have a fly that mimics a suic or a glide fly, like those things are starting to happen, and we are able to make that happen by dialing in fly design and line and leader. It's not just, you can go out there all season long with a 3-foot leader and intermediate line and a Buford and get into fish, but that'd be the equivalent of going out all season long and throwing double 10s. So I think we're starting to see that kind of picture get assembled where, it's not just, that fly looks cool. That fly that, I hear this a lot. Everyone's kind of looking for the fly that has the walk the dog motion. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but sometimes they don't want to walk the dog. Sometimes they want it burned straight back. Sometimes they want it popping up and down. So it doesn't, the pinnacle of every good fly doesn't have to be walk the dog. If that's all you got in your box, you only have one tool, actually.
Yeah. It's like having a boat full of spinners and them not wanting a spinner and wanting top water.
Right. So I think, and that's how I also approach the gear realm of it, like not the conventional gear, but the actual gear for fly fishing is they're different tools, right? Some people, maybe the purists, look at the the water loading, as they call it, the 12 and 13 weights is not real fly fishing, but that's how you get a certain fly out there, a certain size, certain style of fly. Compare that to a topwater or a rod that has a little bit more flex in the tip that allows me to work it a little differently. So there's a spectrum of stuff that all works, right? It's not like you see the world's best muskie conventional guides only throwing a 8-foot medium heavy rod. They got different tools. So there's still a lot to learn, a lot of blue sky left in muskie fly fishing.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons I love to get into it. Why I've decided to carve a little space out, hopefully.
Yep. No doubt.
So
go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say too, with my 10 weight. So because I had used it down south a few times for some tarpon, I had ended up buying some clear line. I believe it's Scientific Angler. I'm not 100% certain on that.
Sure.
But it's a warm water line. But I, typically am using that setup up until August.
Yep.
So I really don't see much of a degradation in casting the line, but it's clear the whole way. So
right.
I've noticed a huge difference in the last couple of years that I've been using it on the rivers specifically. I would think it actually would play its hand a little bit better in the lake, but just that fly line is so it's, I don't know, you can see it a mile away, and
yep.
And I've had fish for certain come in, look at a fly, and I the only thing that makes sense is they either saw us or they saw the fly line, because they shouldn't have turned away. And so once I kind of started using a little bit more of the clear tip line, I don't know, we just had better connect rates. So don't need to give away any super secrets, but have you ever used any clear tip line on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a misconception here. I think the most common is muskies aren't leader shy. Muskies aren't shy. Muskies follow to the boat. How could they be shy? And I think I always look back on one of my favorite muskie books, one of my favorite muskie authors, Tom Gelb, who is no longer with us, but was an amazing muskie angler back in his day. And he was like a scientist when it came to muskie angling, and he broke it down, among many other things that he broke down, kind of the negative mood muskies, the neutral mood, and
the one that wrote
Muskie
on the Fly?
No, wasn't a fly angler. He's a gear guy. He wrote Muskie Mastery, I believe.
Okay.
I believe. I have to go double check the title, but Tom Gelb, Gelb, is the author. He just passed away last year. Monster muskies in his day. But he talked about these three moods: aggressive, neutral, negative. And of course, we all want them to be aggressive all the time. And I think when we find muskies in those moods, that's when you hear the stories of they ate a muskrat. I don't think fly line, you could have glow in the dark fly line. It wouldn't matter. They're going to eat. They're going to devour it. They're coming to the boat. They're going to devour it. Those are the fish that you can, we've had those, you hook up with them, they get off, they come right back and eat again and get off and come back and eat again. And you're just like, holy crap. I don't think fly line matters one bit there. Honestly, I don't think anything, color doesn't even matter. You just put something in front of their face and they're going to chow. I think what you're talking about more on the fly line, I think that's more in those neutral muskies. How do we get the neutral muskies to commit? Those fish that follow. Well, I think the number one thing, go ahead, sorry.
Well, and being a guide, I've got customers that come out and they want to fish, and I can't guarantee the fish's temperament.
Yep.
And so I have to play.
If you could, you'd be the Jeff Bezos of muskie.
Yeah, right. I mean,
nobody can. Nobody's a master of them.
So somebody's got to figure out these challenges and how you approach even negative muskies. What is going to trigger a fish that doesn't want to eat? Yep. And I've noticed that
you're getting into some of that. Yep.
Exactly. And I think that leads us into a really good kind of segue into kind of the fly theory that I have too about muskies. And I think something that's been trending the opposite direction. A good friend of mine, much older than myself, he fishes bamboo rods, and I texted him earlier. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting Dan on from the Musky Fool, and you want to maybe dial in and ask some questions, or text me some questions you got, because he's definitely the guy that will sit at the table and tie 35 blue wing olive patterns and get up because the blue wing olives were going the day before. I mean, he'll consume himself for a 48-hour period.
I love it.
And he's the kind of guy that he's a good friend of mine. He's stepdad and takes care of his shit. But when he takes off, he goes. He's kind of like me, one speed in life. You either working or you're playing, and you're working hard and playing hard. And so every time when I was really working at corporate world, and he's a contractor, so you get Tuesday, Thursday kind of break, and you get 3 days. And he'd tell me, oh yeah, you got to read a little more John Garrett. He says, life's short, and responsibilities are overrated.
Yep, no doubt.
So, but him and I have been kind of, he's taught me a lot with he's the guy who introduced me to musky fly fishing. I'd been a conventional tackle guy for musky for years, and knew it kind of existed, but never really had the opportunity to find musky in a river before. And he took me up. We floated the Flambeau River, and it just floored me. And I went out and I found a drift boat, and I've been addicted ever since.
The rest is history.
Yeah. But he's also the guy who went out and bought the 12 weight and is kind of going where I think a lot of the perception is. And, part of the reason you have a business is because you're selling materials to a lot of fly tires who are putting a crap ton of material on flies these days. Which is, again, kind of hard to talk about setups, because you have so much different variety being influenced and interjected into the industry right now that there's a level of personal preference, I think, much like people used to be about tying a parachute atoms, and how the fly needs to look pretty for them versus what the fish is really seeing and what the fish is really going to do and eat.
No doubt.
So I've kind of always had this little bit of a theory I've been working on called like the potato chip theory. And my buddy put it to me this way. He goes, you float through the kitchen at noon and you're too busy to sit down and eat. There's a T-bone steak that you got to cook sitting there unthawed. Maybe the wife's there to even cook it for you. Or there's an open bag of potato chips. What are you going to grab?
Exactly.
You're going to grab a handful of potato chips.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. I think I heard that. I think I heard that first from Mr. Willen up in northern Wisconsin. It's a very
it may come from Larry up at Hayward.
It's come from everywhere. It's come from all different. I'm the gear guys that's fishing for them longer than us, so they've been throwing small baits to them. But it's very, very much a thing. I think I agree, and I also think. I'll just preface this. Anybody out there claims that they know muskies or muskie experts. I always chuckle because this fish, there's not that predictable, right? We can find them, but like on the same day, I could be throwing a 15-inch fly and you could be throwing a 6-inch fly and we both can get meat. It's not like trout where they're keying in on an olive size 14 caddis as opposed to a size 16 tan caddis. It's just, I haven't seen that. Maybe there's someone out there who's got an example to the contrary. I think there usually are in muskie. It's a bunch of contradictions, but I think it's a very good tool to have in the repertoire. And I would say to the same guy who only fishes small flies, he's probably missing something if you don't have two big ones, because we've seen it go the other way too.
Absolutely. I
right?
think
Like sucker fishing, right?
If you
sucker fishing is a great example.
In the fall, for
there's
sure.
a time of year, yeah. Well, there's a time of year where they want those 6 or 7 inch suckers, and then they want those mega suckers, and it's like just take that information in and maybe apply it to flies. So
yeah, there's a lot of different things that factor into weather and the moon phase. I think muskies, out of probably most of the freshwater fish, there's a moon phase factor into it that you can go deep in on, or you can just consider. But I think it is a consideration. It's something that I do when I plan a trip.
Yep. Oh yeah, I think most of us do. Just, anything, any little thing, even if it's mental and personal confidence, anything that can just tilt the scales percent in your favor, and know that it's not exact, right? 2 weeks ago we were out, there was a moon phase. It was not a major moon phase, but there was a bite window, right? It was like clockwork on the minor. Just that whole period, we didn't see anything after, didn't see anything before. I'm out the other day, full moon, everyone's juiced up. There's a major from 11 to noon. We were catching fish all the way up till 10 a.m. and nothing until after the major. So it's like 2 complete contradictions. But I'll still circle those days on the calendar and, be out there and at least take it into the calculus a little bit.
So with the rod setup, if a guy wanted to get started in musky fishing and he was going to go fish a little bit, he had access to, let's say, small boat, and he was maybe going to wade fish some rivers, a little bit of both. What's like the go-to kind of rod, reel, line kind of setup?
Yeah.
All around.
I think easiest to answer on the rod setup because it's the most versatile. And definitely one of the most important pieces of your gear when you're talking about musky fly fishing. Mainly because
do you feel the rod's more important than the reel?
I don't think the reel's even I don't think it matters at all. Honestly, if you could figure out a way to put that fly line in a bucket next to you, you'd be fine. You don't need a reel.
I agree with you completely. I call it kind of hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, and there's some people out there that put muskies on the reel. I think you're just wasting time. But anyway,
open yourself
up
to too many variables.
Yeah, rod's up there just because of what you're using it, right? You're figure eighting with it, you're casting with it. There is, of course, you want to be able to make sure it can fight a fish. I think most everything above an 8-weight has got the capability to effectively fight a muskie. There are for sure 8-weights that can do the job. I mean, I've landed big ass mahi on an 8-weight. I can guarantee you that fish put up a tougher fight than any muskie, and they came to the boat pretty quick. I think where you get the disadvantages of the lighter gear is, when I'm fishing for muskie, a lot of times it's crappy weather with winds, and I'm trying to punch big flies through wind, or I'm trying to figure eight a fish next to the boat really quick, fast, aggressive figure eight. You're going to be undergunned with an 8-weight.
Absolutely.
It's not meant for that tool. That's frankly why I like some of the 12s. It's not necessarily because I need it for a bigger fly. It's just bigger water, wind, it can figure eight a little bit better. Some of those things I think about. So, long story short, to answer your question, I think what I normally tell people is 10 to 11. If you're looking for a musky stick and you want it to be your first one or your all-around workhorse, 10 to 11. Not all 10s and 11s are created equal, right? You have some of the super, super fast action, softer tip saltwater rods, which is, hey, that's where we all probably started musky fishing, with one of those. But we're at the point in time where there are some rods built around muskie. A little bit more of the medium fast, maybe fast action as opposed to the extra fast. A little bit stiffer tip. You start to see the extended butt sections. And there are a couple other features that are unique to muskie. But that's what I'm looking for.
So I run
you can cast all day.
A 9-weight Scott Title.
Yep.
And because of that medium action, I've just really found that I really like it in the musky water. I will say that, it's not the rod that I pick up when the wind is rolling.
Right. Nor would it be like to your earlier point, if you're out on the Green Bay chasing a 55
Hell
or a
no.
next world record, yeah, like know what you're getting yourself into,
Yeah.
right?
Hell no.
Yep.
But again,
but it can get the job done.
It can get the job done. It
Yep,
definitely
no doubt.
can.
And we got to remember, not you and me, I think you do, but like the sport has to remember that we have a diverse set of people. We have, although they're quiet because the men speak louder sometimes because of our big old egos, but there's a lot of women fly fishing for muskie. There's a lot of older folks. There's a lot of younger kids. Like, not everybody should be out there throwing a 12 weight. That's a pain in the ass sometimes. Just get out fishing. Obviously know what you're getting into. Now I don't like to make a lot of bold line in the sand statements when I don't know for sure. But like I do know for sure that if you're trying to go fish for muskies on a 5 weight, that you should not do that. Or a 6 weight. And not just because you won't be successful throwing a fly, but also because like you're going to catch a 45 and it's going to probably break your rod, and that's not going to be good for you or the fish. So don't set yourself up for that. I think muskie brings that out of us, where we spend so much damn time chasing these fish. I don't want my gear to be the failure point, right?
Nope.
So I might go up a little bit in the weight. I might, do 50-pound fluoro instead of 40-pound mono. Just things like that where I've seen it enough. The big fish are tackle busters. So you got to be prepared and have the right tools, the nets, the jaw spreaders to really deal with these fish. I encourage people to get out there on the water, but we're not just popping panfish into the boat, right? They're fish that when you do catch them, even the small ones, the 35s, they're not for the everyday person to just land and handle and get back. You definitely got to learn some stuff. Now, we all start at the bottom of the mountain. So I think it's responsibility of stuff, people like us and you to share that information and say, this is how it can be done. We get into finger pointing because of social media mainly. And typically the intentions are good, just executed poorly. But that's where it comes from, is just to make sure people are doing some of the things we've all learned the right way, right? The how to handle them, how to get them back in the water, the big musky nets, all that good stuff. So I think gear-wise, since we're on the topic, I will always be the one to teach that. Yeah, net's going to cost you a couple $100, and you got to buy some tools that are probably going to go for a swim and get replaced.
Actually, sorry, please come back to your topic, but I'm talking to a owner of a retail shop. So they make nets that are like a trough.
Yep.
Do you know who the manufacturer is, and do you carry any of that stuff?
Are you talking about the cradles?
Yes, the cradles.
Yep. So we carry one of them. I think Frable makes another one, but we carry the cradle by RS Nets.
What's your opinion on those?
I think that they are great tools for two reasons. One, they stow better than most any net. And two, they do really help you revive and for lack of a better term, work on a fish, right? Or you gotta get the hooks out, cut the hook. It's a better platform to do that with. I would not want to be stuck in the boat. I would not want to be stuck in the boat with a 50-inch muskie on my line and only have a cradle to capture that fish. I think they are really poor capturing devices, for big fish especially. I want a big bucket net. I think it's safer for the fish, but it really is. It's better probability for the angler to be able to get that fish netted. So I think
that was my big question to you: is how are they?
If you can have both, great. I think. I have a small boat. I can't have both. So I have a net. I have a big net. And I think that's the way most people should go.
I have a very, very large net.
Yep. So that's and again, it's the point I was making earlier is like, yeah, there's some upfront investment on a big net, and when I go trout fishing, sometimes I forget the net, and it's not the end of the world. When I go musky fishing, that'd be like forgetting my flies. I'm not. You got to have that with you, and it's a pain in the butt to haul, sure. But if we just want to look at it from a practical sense, how many fish get off near at the boat, and if you're trying to tail a muskie, like you're not going to catch it as often. And then from a safety and ethics standpoint, like we don't need more muskies swimming around with lures in their mouth because you didn't have a net to land it. Like it's the right thing to do, and if the $200 is too much for you, buy a used one. Go find a buddy. Like there's options out there.
Yeah, it's I mean, I actually mine's a hand-me-down. My old man got out of the musky fishing realm and went salmon fishing full time up here in the Northwoods, and yeah, it's you didn't need it anymore, so I didn't have to spend the $200. But I've been looking at those cradles, and I was kind of curious what how the use rate. I know and have seen plenty of fish that I thought were slightly too big for that.
Yeah, again, and if there's someone out there listening who's a cradle landing musky expert, call me up, teach me, and show me the way. I don't have confidence in others, right? Like sometimes I'll have a buddy in the boat, and I think it's user net error can also be a factor.
Oh,
it's a lot easier for someone to stick a big net in the water than it is to handle a cradle, and I got to fight the fish a little longer and make sure it comes. So, but when it comes to reviving a fish and keeping their head pointed upstream and having it, sometimes you got to go digging in that net to get the fish unhooked. So there are applications, but I would never put it over a big net by any means.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. It was an investment I was considering making, but
if I just talk you out of it, that's you'll get that from me. I'm not going to sell you a cradle just to sell you a cradle. I'll give you the truth.
Well, I appreciate that as a shop owner, because I think most of you guys are like that, but some aren't. I've been into a few places that aren't, and that comment is casted across many industries, not necessarily fly shops.
Oh yeah, there's always a bad apple here or there.
I was a sales guy for 16 years, man.
Yep. And the bad ones usually the people hear about them more often than they hear about the good ones. So that's why it feels that way. But no doubt.
So let's say you left or you grabbed the net for the day, but you accidentally left your fly box at home, and you had one fly with you. What would that fly be?
Oh, that's a great question. I have been fishing a lot of different flies lately because I've been testing them out, and it's been actually very uncharacteristic of me because I'm very much a one. I've made some jokes on the internet about like the 5 fly boxes that we have on the boat, and that's very uncharacteristic actually because I can be caught fishing one fly all weekend, and I think probably going to be Buford. I just personally have confidence in it. I can. With a few different lines, I think I have some versatility to do the slow strip pause, walk the dog. Also, you can burn it. I just know it. I can get it to the right depth. I can work it the right way. Probably a mixture of white, tan, and olive, right? Some natural colors. If I got one fly, I'm going to probably have a majority white, but, I think that's typically where I go.
We got a lot of bird hunters that have been listening to the podcast because we haven't transitioned as much into fishing as I wanted to earlier in the season. I don't know that people necessarily, and I guess I'm sure we have a listener base who knows what a Buford is, but maybe some of the listener base does not. So can you maybe just from a visual standpoint try to describe what that fly looks like?
So I'll start with some of the history around it.
I think did Brad develop that?
Yeah, so that's a Bowen creation, and he's the first one to say like his inspirations came from Dahlberg divers and some of Bob Popovich's flies and his techniques. At the end of the day, where most of the musky flies have some similarities in the tail and the body, at least from the materials standpoint, right? There's always a million different ways to tie those materials on, but from a materials standpoint, talking about premium, saddle and schwappen feathers. They just have a webby, flowy characteristics. They also create a lot of that length, and they're pretty durable for what they are. You think of a feather and you hold it and it's really light, but it holds up. Then the majority of the fly is bucktail and flash. So whether that's flashaboo, crystal flash, polar flash, the list goes on and on. It's a little overwhelming, but some type of sparkle. And bucktail is the premium material. Why bucktail, I think, is actually a really good question. As we see more synthetic materials be used, bucktail comes from deer. It's deer tail. Super durable, sheds water, and it just has these characteristics when you tie it right into a fly that it creates profile. It's like profile and movement ability compared to its weight is a really good ratio. It's very light, but it also creates kind of this perceived bulk. So that's what you see in most of the body of a Buford and many other flies, is that bucktail reverse tied onto the hook. And then the Buford, where it gets its name, where it gets its, its main characteristic is that big puffy stacked and spun deer hair head. So you're literally taking, some of the whether it's belly hair or body hair or some of the hollow ends of a bucktail, you're spinning it on the end of the hook, and it kind of creates this bucktail radio. And it's what it effectively does is put buoyant material up in the front of the fly that pushes water, and it kind of pushes water, and then when the strip stops, it forces that whole fly to stop and open up. It also aids and abets some of that neutral buoyancy in the fly. So your fly line is actually the thing dictating the depth of that fly, not the fly itself, because it pretty much floats on its own. So that's what is most associated with the Buford. There's many different ways that people will tie it now. They're using different synthetics, and they're still creating that Buford style head. But the Bolin original was always bucktail, bucktail, bucktail.
What, how long was the Bolin original? Because it was a single hook.
Oh yeah, the first one, I can only guess. I'd have to ask him to be sure, but I would imagine it was a single hook, in that 6 to 8 inches, maybe a little bit longer style. Still probably, if I had to tell you one fly that catches more muskies per year, it's probably still that, just because the amount of people using it, the efficacy of that fly, the size is really good. It's right in that middle, kind of most like a bait fish style. But yeah, and then as things started to, more hooks, more shanks, everything started to kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger from there.
I know. I understand it in application purposes, but I don't understand the personal desire behind all of that. More, maybe it comes from just the tying aspect of it, but man, I think there's so many. I don't care what rod you have. They are shoulder busting, not even elbow busting.
Yeah, they're body beaters. I think there's definitely different things going on with that, right? You definitely have people that are just, I want to make something bigger. Bigger's going to be bigger fish. Sure, there might be something to that. I think when you look at some of the guys taking a very intentional path to create some of these flies, first, we do see size. I think size is definitely more important than color. So there are times where those big, I've seen a muskie chase, a decent sized muskie chase down a 30-inch carp or sucker, and they're ignoring the small panfish. And whether that's territorial or they got big, hungry, their eyes are bigger than their stomach, don't know. Haven't talked to a muskie lately. But I think it works, right? And I've seen it where even this spring it was kind of odd where some of the small stuff that's more standard wasn't getting as much action as some of the big stuff. So there's a reason for it. I think just because it's longer doesn't mean it has to be heavier either. That's where I think creativity at the vise matters. Like anybody can just put their whole fly tying bin on a fly and say, look at this big thing. Pushes water, man. I'm like, well, yeah, it sure does, but I'd rather cast that with a bait caster than a fly rod. So I think creativity, right? There's one fly in particular that I think is first see it and they're just like, that's why is there so much material? Why does it need to be that big? And then you see it swim. And then you're like, oh, that fly tyer. David Holmes is actually the guy. He's a guide up in Stillwater area. Really cool dude.
Yeah.
He ties some flies for us. He's not just made it bigger for bigger sake. He's produced fish. He's seen fish react to bigger flies, but he's also, the way he ties it, it creates the movement. I've tried to tie that fly half as much material. doesn't swim the same. Now, when you get like, someone asked me the other day, they're like, "Oh, I'd like a glider, but I want it to go down deeper, so I'm going to add some lead." And I'm like, "Well, don't add more weight to it. Take weight off, because the reason it's not going down is because you got a half a deer on that hook. But like, go the other way, right? Like there's another fly that I love from Matt over at Adaptive Fly, the yard sail. It's super sparse amount of material, so that thing gets down right away. You know, it's not going to sit there and hover as much, but I know with an intermediate, I can get it down 5 feet, 6 feet, sinking line even more. Again, it's just a different tool, right? It's not like I can say one's better than the other. That'd be like saying double 10 cowgirls are better than a Suic. Like no one can make that point. It's just not true. It's just a different application. And I think that's where I encourage people, like, it's really cool to see these guys, and we try to work with them and you know, maybe try and filter out some of the weeds from the shaft in terms of like who's actually really taking a design approach. You know, it's a fisherman, a fisherwoman really thinking about what they want to achieve out of this pattern, not just like a pretty picture on Instagram. Cause that can happen where it's like, "Oh, look, it's a beautiful fly." And it's like, I don't know. I don't really care what it looks like. It's not me who's eating it, you know? So that's a little bit of my, I guess, soapbox on flies. Happy to dig in a couple other directions if you have questions.
Well, I'm just sitting back thinking here, looking at some of the flies I have up on the wall, and I'm thinking, you know, you're going to have to put together a little package for me with for a bigger rod. We'll talk about the line. Don't necessarily need to go there. I probably will need a reel just because I'm not taking any off other rods to do it. You know, and I'm doing this from a guide perspective. I do need, as I go into the fall, I'm trying to do a little bit of cast and blast this fall. And
that sounds awesome.
Typically that's where a lot of this stuff works better. The bigger flies, as the water gets cold and the fish really turn on that fall feed bag. And they do work in other applications. And I'm a little bit on the lacking side of deeper water and a little bit of that good size fly for the fall. Fishing below some of the dams and stuff. So we'll talk about some of the applications I have that I need. I've got a hole, and especially some flies, man, and I'll give you a few shout outs and everything, and I'll pay for everything too. So don't worry about it. But
appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
But yeah, I definitely need a setup. So, I guess as people kind of hear all this talk about some of the technical aspects of it, maybe kind of a good closing for today. All it takes is a rod, a fly, and some initiative. Let's say everybody's got what they're looking for, and they're just trying to, I don't know, they got an option to go to the lake, they got an option to go to the river, but they're not sure how to kind of put it together.
Yep.
Can you give anybody any advice for maybe a lake approach and a river approach to just get them to go?
Yep. So I think this is where, just in general, right, and a lot of the times that person, they have limited time, right? They can't just be a fishing bum for 2 months and just go follow fish around.
Dan, let me add one little bit more of a dynamic to it. I think, too, some of the fly fishing community, we are very much gear junkies.
Yep.
And typically, we dive into the technical aspects. I mean, we spent how long talking about flies, and some people probably don't even know some of the names of the flies that we threw out here, and maybe not even some of the weights of the rods that we're talking about.
Right.
So that
break it down.
Well, not even that. It tends to be daunting from an aspect and almost somewhat off-putting or Oh, there's too much involved here. I don't know that fly fishing for muskies, that I'm going to take that leap from trout fishing.
Yep.
So
no, I get that. That's a good point. It's a good, and honestly, it happens with everything, right? Like whether you're golfing or you're into cars, there's like just getting into it, and then there's all the way at the bottom of the rabbit hole, and none of them are better than others. It's just a matter of how deep you want to go.
exactly.
But I get where you're going. Like simple. What's the and there's some beauty in that. Can I just take like we get so complex is better, and maybe this is for my software technology world, like. The
Keep
harder
simple,
thing to do is to
man.
make it simple. Yeah, the harder thing to do is to make it simple. You see the guys that have been doing it for a long time in the musky world, and it's pretty simple. I know a guy, the only thing he fishes is a black suet every day of the year, all day of the year. It's like there's something there that we might be missing as we're got 15 fly boxes or whatever it may be. So, but yeah, to your question, like where do I'm ready.
You might learn something when you come fly fishing with me then.
Good.
No,
I'm always want to learn.
I'm old school and I'm pretty simple, man. So
that's perfect. But yeah, your question is like, the truck is packed and I'm ready to go. What do I need to know about what I'm actually on the water? Kind of, is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to a lake, or no, maybe not. The truck is packed. Like I want to pack the truck, but I'm not sure I should pack the truck.
Oh yeah.
And I got a lake to choose from, or I got a river to choose from. What's the tidbit you could give somebody to make them pack the truck and get out and do it for the weekend?
Yep. It's probably a cliche, but you can't catch it from the couch. I think that applies to muskie maybe more than anything. Yeah, I mean, if it's 90-degree water temps and there's no water or there's a big algae bloom, there are some times where it might just be worth not going out. But more often than not, just get out there, go out, even if it doesn't look good and the moon phase isn't perfect. That stuff at the end of the day, there are a lot of fish caught outside of full moons and new moons, on bright sunny days, on cloudy days. So that's how I operate, right? There's no bad day for musky fishing. Is a good generalization.
You gotta go.
Yeah, and like we're always proven wrong. Yeah, I've had new moon days that are just amazing, but I've also had bright sunny days without a moon phase that are just as amazing. So don't get discouraged because some guy told you it's not a good day for fish. Like actually, I kind of have a chip on my shoulder then and want to be like, well, I'm gonna show you that, like take that attitude. You have to be a little strong-willed to go musky fish because it will be a beatdown. The expectation of going out on your first day and catching one is it's too high. There are guys that love it and put everything into it, and they go a year without a fish. So get after it.
Okay, you laid that up to me too well. So I got to tell you this quick story, and we can finish with a couple closing notes. I took out my good buddy last year, and I had been working my tail off all summer, getting burned out at work, and was just kind of like, screw it, we're going fishing. And he works in the education realm, so his summer is kind of very flexible.
Yep.
He's in the college space and in recruitment, so he's actually quite busy for what people would think in being in education, but he still happened to be able to get a day or two during the summer to mess off during the week. So
right.
we went out midweek and we were on the Croy. And I told him we're going to put in here, and there's a ledge and a rock, and you have to beat that rock up behind that rock because these fish in the river they can sit anywhere where they can not expend energy and just watch bait go by typically, and especially when they're in feeding pattern. That's what if they're there, they're going to eat. And or at least look at it. And I told him, you might have to put 5-6 casts in there to get him to come out, but he'll come out. And he puts 3 casts in there and gives up. And I'm rolling the boat, and the current's the water was up.
Yeah, you're working to hold it there.
Yeah. So I'm rolling the boat, and finally he kind of pulls off the last cast, and I'm like, screw that. I grab my spinning rod, because that's when I'm rolling the boat, typically about all I can do. And and I had a just small MEPS number 5 on, and I threw it in there 3 times, and then finally we were like about 30 yards past it, the damn thing, and I just huge long cast up in there and bounced it off the rock and came out, and about halfway the damn thing just hammered it. And I looked at him and I said, "Here, you take the fish." I got to mess around with the anchor. That I got.
Yeah, we're headed downstream now. You take the fish.
And my point to all that is you got to try, and you got to give it your all. If you want to be successful, this is a goal setting kind of event. It's not fishing, and you have to enjoy all of it. From tying the knots to finding the spot to working it to driving home, kind of thinking about what you can do next time if you didn't achieve your goal, or what came in place during the day that you were able to achieve a goal. Maybe you just had a follow, or maybe you had to take it.
What can you learn from?
Yeah. So,
and especially, I think you and I might be similar here. Not everyone has to be. These are the questions you want to ask and the way you want to act. If you're wondering, why am I not catching fish? How can I catch more fish? Some guys, they just want to be out on the boat on a nice day, right? I don't want to go fishing on a 50-degree rainy day. That's miserable. Where you and I are probably like, hell yeah, that's okay too. But don't complain if you're not catching a lot of fish, because it's not that easy. It's not that straightforward. If we could just pluck them out, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Well,
and to your point earlier, I've had days where my uncle was up from Florida, and just kind of the stars aligned, and he fishes conventional tackle, but we were on a river up in northern Minnesota, and I think we moved 12 of them.
Wow.
We had 3, using top water. He was using top water, and we had 3 different fish just completely breach out of the water after stuff.
Yeah.
No hookups. I take that back. Maybe 2 hookups, but lost right away. They were just so aggressive to the point that too aggressive. Like, I kept going, Joe, get the fly rod out. I don't think if you just put it on the water, they're going to hit it, and it's got 1 hook, and they're going to swallow it. It's smaller than anything you're using.
Right.
But yeah, you just got to go. You never know what the conditions are going to give you for the day. And if you're sitting at home watching the TV, watching guys catch muskie, that fish is never going to be in your hands. Yep.
Well, Andy, be careful what you watch too, because all those guys are going to make it seem like they're experts, and it's at the end of the day they're grinding as hard as you are. They're just also trying to make a TV show. So.
Yeah, they don't show you the grind though.
No, that's why I'd love to, someone to do the Steve Vernella, Steve Vernella style of muskie fishing. Show me the failures, man, because we know they're there. You just hide them up.
Well, and some of those guys on those TV shows, the connections that they make put them in opportunities that a lot of guys can't make on their own.
True. Yeah, they got a guide putting them on fish, and we all watch it.
And the guide's stuff. Doing the grind,
the sport. Yeah.
You just don't
exactly.
See
that guy's had the failures and worked his tail off to get to that point. So.
Well, and it's also, shameless little plug here, but and plugs out to other, bird hunting guides I know. Guys show up to hunt birds with us for a weekend, and they don't understand that, the 1 dog or 2 dogs that they get to see are a few dogs that somebody's housing and training for 365 days. And, there's so much expense and cost behind some of it. And I think, in general, awareness about just, everything in life sometimes needs to be opened up. So, oh man, it's been a lot of fun chatting.
Yeah, dude, we went on for a while, but I enjoyed it too. We'll have to do it again and do it in a boat.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of that, do you, I'm going to throw just a few iconic Wisconsin rivers out there. And if we were going to go, we'll leave this last thing with the listeners. Which one of these rivers would you have me have my either raft or drift boat ready for you when you come up north? You get the Chippewa, you get the Flambeau, the Northern Wisconsin. Right.
Which one am I picking, huh? Is that the question?
No, I'm sorry. Let's.
Well, there's one spot on there that may or may not be where the world record was caught, depending on which story you're willing to listen to. So I think I'll pick that one. I think we'll go to the Chippewa.
All right, man. It's a river I know fairly well, and there's some upper stretches of it that I'm hoping this craft is going to help me explore.
Yep, awesome.
It's a really great fishery. The Chippewa flowage up there is
that's where the biggins live.
It's an iconic musky area, and the what is it? What the hell is in Hayward with all the big
freshwater fishing hall of fame. Yep.
Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. Yeah, that's what it is. So, it's where it all began, I guess you could say. Some people would argue. Yep.
No, that's at least some of the lore. That's for sure. No one really knows where those fish were caught, but we can just read between the lines as best as we can.
Well, we'll have to get some dates on the calendar, and if you're up that way in the fall, you do any grouse hunting?
I have not. No, I have not. I'd love to, but I'm a noob. I'm a noob at it, so I can aim a shotgun straight, but I have not done any grouse hunting.
Well, we'll see how you do musky fishing, and maybe we'll have to throw a shotgun in your hand this fall.
There you go. I love it.
Do a little bit of both as they both kind of heat up.
Yep. Perfect.
Mid-October, man.
That sounds amazing. Well, it's like grouse and musky and grouse, just like central. It's pretty beautiful. So the rough grouse capital of the world, I believe, is up in those neck of the woods.
Phillips kind of claimed the grouse capital of the world or something.
Yep.
You want to do a quick wrap up though?
Yeah, let's do it. I appreciate having me on, man. It was a good time.
So how can people find you?
MuskyFool.com or Musky Fool on Instagram or Facebook. And stay tuned. We definitely have some big announcements coming up in the next few months we're excited about.
So if a guy like me wanted to just heard the podcast, wanted to call you and get a muskie set up, is your contact information all there? Just reach out.
Phone numbers on the website. But any channel that you prefer, you want to send me an Instagram message, Facebook, email, call me on the phone. We're here, and we are more than happy to chat. We love it, so please do call.
Make sure I have all the contact information for you. I'll include it in the show notes.
Perfect.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll get out on the water, and got anything left to say?
I think we hit on most of it, man. I think if I talk about conservation anymore, I might get some eye rolls. So we'll just have to do another podcast for that one. But I appreciate it. We had a blast.
I'll definitely give a plug out in the post roll here for conservation, anyways. So
cool.
I'll cover it for you.
My guy.
A little intro outro by request from a friend. Shout out to Cody. You got your intro in the outro. I can't thank the listeners enough. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Amazing Outdoors podcast. Please take the extra step give us a rating, give us a review. And if you would be so obliged, please hit the download button. And most of all, I guess it is time to wrap this up for the night. I'm out of beer. What I was trying to say is support our podcast sponsor, Upland Outfitters. Promo code Amazing. Still 20% off. I don't know how long that's going to last. Get them before hunting season. We'll see you out on the river for the next couple months. You're looking to get out? Hit me up. I'm not that expensive. I'll put on a world-class trip for you for the next, well, till we start approaching the end of August, and then the light switches and I have to go out west and hunt birds, get my dogs ready for bird hunting season and a little bit of musky fishing. Thanks, everyone. Join your conservation group. If you're going to take something, be willing to put something back. Have a good night. We'll see you soon.